Well, welcome back to another episode of Culture Chat where we are connecting with colleagues and friends and clients from all different industries and different places. We welcome back Ryan Bezenek, Vice President of IT, Ariat International. Are we getting into cowboy boot season? It's always cowboy boot
It's
season.
always cowboy boot season.
I
Yeah.
actually was just in the Wilco,
hmm
big area spot, and they now have dog jackets, area dog
Yes.
jackets. So
Yep.
you're in the puppy business too, huh?
Yep. That's actually through a partner of ours. All of our accessories are through a partner, but yeah, they do a really great job managing our accessories business for us. But
Yes.
yeah, it's pretty awesome to see.
Yes, they were very
Good
cute.
stuff.
Max almost got a new jacket, but
Aw.
he's not that
Well,
old
it's
yet.
probably cold up where you are in the
Oh
high
yeah, he had
desert.
snow. He needs little booties.
Yeah.
Needs little
When you
booties.
Aw.
said doggy jacket, in my mind, it was an adult jacket there was a pocket for a dog.
Oh,
Oh yeah, spoken like somebody who does not have a dog.
no. No, for us it would be more like a concealed carry jacket, not a
That's
dog jacket.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we ain't trying to
Okay.
conceal anything here in Georgia. They're just
No.
carrying.
Same
Yeah.
here. It's all open carry. Well, anyway, good to have you back, Ryan. A lot's been going on at your company in the
Yep.
country in the market, all the things. We
Yeah.
always love talking emotional intelligence with you, and we thought we'd make a little spin to talk about how that interfaces with change management. And so,
Well,
yeah,
I think well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think it's been, what, about a year since we last spoke?
probably.
Maybe something like that. And a lot has happened, not just at Ariat, but, the world. I mean, the economy is uncertain, geopolitics are uncertain, business climate has tightened a bit. And all of those things, whether it's, in the workplace or, in your own psyche, require um, the ability to pivot and to cope and think things through on how you approach them emotionally and as you relate to other people. It's very easy, especially in this climate, to kind of doom scroll and get off into the psychological spiral,
Yeah.
and then let that affect how you show up in the world. And so,
I'm so using doom scroll for
Well,
the
yeah,
and
rest of my life.
oh, you haven't heard that one yet? Oh
No.
yeah, yeah. And
But
as
that
humans,
is
like that's what we
me.
do. I mean, that's what we do too. We look for those things that even support our thinking, right? So now it's all bigger than maybe it really is. So
yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, again, going back to the conversation we were having before we kicked this off, news is a big corporation, right? They're looking to make money, and they make money off of sensationalism and negativity, and bad news sells.
Yep.
And especially in the world that we live in around these echo chambers of social media and stuff, it makes it very easy to get trapped in this, oh my God, everything's negative and everything's reinforcing what, the view that I have. And that really, I think for me, I got caught in that during COVID.
Yeah.
And it really weighs on you psychologically and emotionally. And it does affect how you show up for not just yourself, but for those around you that you love and those around you that you love and work with. And it can really have an effect on things that you're trying to do in your work and personal life. Um, and it all goes back to EQ, like recognizing that, oh crap, this is
Here
really
I am.
affecting,
Yeah. Yeah.
psychologically how I'm
Yeah.
showing up with people.
Totally. Well, the
Um,
first in all of it, right? When we talk about leadership or anything, I mean, just as like you said, as we're showing up as humans,
yep,
self-awareness, number
yep,
one, foundational, right? Like
yeah,
what's going on with me? Do I even recognize that I'm doom scrolling? Do I even
yeah,
recognize why I'm doing? No, because we
yeah.
just go down the rabbit hole. So,
Yeah.
what are your practices to like take a beat and check in with yourself?
Yeah, so I think just recognizing that in my mind, a lot of times that, news organizations, be they on the left or the right, and I read them all, right? I don't just go out to CNN and get the lefty view. I go to Fox, I go to, Drudge, I go to all these places that have, I think this very broad view of events. And I had to teach myself years ago that there's an agenda that each one of these outlets has, and
All of them.
it's really not necessarily reporting on the truth. It's really reporting on what their perspective on this stuff is, and take it as a grain of salt. Like I will tell you, like, just as an example, when the Ukraine thing started, I I very much got into this spiral of, well, the Ukraine's going to go and then China's going to get into Taiwan and it's going to become this big global thing. And that may happen ultimately. But in my mind, I was like prepping. I'm like, I have a list and like I have a place to go and like I'm out of here, right? But I think when you take a step back and you go, okay, you know what? I am maybe reacting a little bit to the sensationalism that's being put out there in the news spaces. I'm reacting to that self-reinforcing echo chamber. And I think you have to start there and say, why is this so interesting to me? Why? Okay, because, well, one, it's interesting because it is self-reinforcing, right? I say, well, this is an interesting article, and the next thing I've got like 8,000 articles that are all reinforcing. And so I think stepping back and going, okay, hey, wait a second, this isn't the full picture. And really thinking to yourself, and again, it goes back to self-awareness. Like, hey, I know what this is doing to me. I know why it's doing this to me. Let's get out of that and take a step back and say, okay, maybe not as crazy or as dire as it looks. Life is going to continue. It doesn't need to be taking this out on your wife or your colleagues or whatever, right? Because, ultimately, I think it all boils down to, and sorry, I had this conversation with my boss that all of these fears that come up when you do doom scroll, when change occurs, if you think about it, every single fear that we have, whether it's fear of World War III, fear of losing your spouse,
family, losing
fear
your
of money,
job.
whatever it happens to be, it all boils down to a fear of death. And I know that sounds really like morbid, but it all really boils down to, in your mind, you go, okay, this change happens, it's affecting me in this way. Maybe I'm not prepared for it. Maybe I'm not going to keep up with it. Maybe it's going to change the way maybe my job's going to be eliminated. And you just go through all this whole thing, and then job being eliminated goes to not having money, to not being able to buy food, to homelessness, and the next thing you know, you're dead. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Although, I don't know, I don't want to sound like a total depressive person here, or like, please do not take this as I'm like gonna kill myself or anything, but like, death. That's like the out. Like that actually is like that I'm not afraid of. Like I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of suffering. Like, and I think that's it. Like, but I'm not afraid of dying because I'm just kind of like, well, all these freaking worries go away. So actually, when I go down all this doom nonsense of like, and then what, and then what, and then I'm gonna be homeless on the street, and I do it too, right? Like then what? Then you go, well, death isn't it. It's the suffering part. Because then I'm kind of like, oh, death. I don't need to care. 100%. So, like,
but I think you're unique in that though, because a lot of people.
Self-evolved.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, like, I have an overarching fear of death, and I think that most people do. I think you're very unique in not having.
That was going to be the second thing that I was going to say when I talked about we don't prepare people for our loved ones to get old, and we have a very horrible relationship with death, like an extraordinarily and the thing about death, and this is I know this is odd topic of conversation, but that's the whole point, is we don't like to talk about this stuff, and literally
every
single person it's going to happen to. Right. No one gets out of it.
Nope,
not a single person gets out of it. Yeah. And so I think that unlike maybe you, Ryan, and definitely unlike you, Rachel, from what you just shared, in my mind, I always go to I better make the most of today. Like,
so that
honestly,
not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Honestly, can't tell what tomorrow's going to be, so I might as well balls to the wall today. So I start to be less afraid about having nothing and being like, I don't even know if I'm going to be here to have nothing. So I might as well just do the stuff, Yeah. So in all honesty, one of the things, and it's just today too, I really had a terrible yesterday, a terrible evening, didn't sleep, like the whole thing, right? And so this morning I get up and it's overcast and I'm very much like connected to the sun and whatever. And so I was kind of like, and so I did my thing where it's like, okay, let's talk about moments of gratitude. What are we grateful for today?
Yep.
And what I'm grateful for today is resilience, because though I'm not feeling resilient just yet, I know it's coming. I know it exists. I know it's there. I know I have the opportunity for it. Totally. And so whatever
is resilience. That is the resilience. That noticing that tomorrow will be different. That this too shall pass.
I actually find that can like you can find that even if you're like going through that in the moment. And this is where I was going to go with all this morbidity and darkness, is that it really starts with putting positivity out there, right? Because you can, like, here's a great example, right? So I had a very good friend pass away the same day we found my mom in this situation that's now requiring her to move in. And so it was this real tumultuous time, real kind of like, okay, I have to do some soul searching about not only how I show up, but like really what's important. Like you said, Andie, like, I don't know what tomorrow looks like, right? And why am I worrying about what that might look like? Because all I have is this moment right now and how I'm showing up and how I'm interacting with other people. And what I've found and where I've gotten to in my own head and heart is it really starts with how you make other people feel. And you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, right? You're having a bad day, whatever. I've tried to get into the practice over the last 6 or 8 weeks, and I'm not perfect at it, and I probably never will be, but finding a way to make somebody else feel good, right? And that for me is what has led to me being able to find resilience in those moments where things aren't going well for me personally. I turn it around, and instead of making it about me, I try to make it about getting other people to feel good, because that turns my perspective around. Because you see it, people light up, they go, like last night, I'll give you an example. So I'm out at dinner with some colleagues at work last night, and the woman who was the hostess at this restaurant, she came up and she was like kind of wiping down our table and stuff. And I was like, hey, how you doing? She's like, she kind of grumbled. And I'm like, oh, it sounds like you're having a rough day. She's like, well, today's the last day of my week and all this stuff. And she was pretty gruff, right? But you could tell she was kind of dressed up for something, right? She had like this beautiful, like maroon kind of mauve beret on, and she was dressed up for something. And I just said, sorry you're having a bad week. I'm glad it's your Friday. I really love the beret that you have on, right? And she just immediately perked up, right? You could just see it, right? And I've found over the last 6 or 8 weeks in grappling with all of this stuff that I've actually gotten even a newer place with my EQ, because I'm not perfect with this stuff.
No, we're all evolving. Nobody's perfect.
I've gotten to another place where I found that if I turn this around, right, and I go, oh, woe is me today, it's a real shitty day or whatever. If I go into Starbucks or if I walk into work and I just spend a few minutes having a touch point with people that is about making them feel better, it turns my entire day around. Right?
Because it's not about you, right?
That's right.
The more we can get out of our own head and stop focusing on ourselves and have gratitude for whether it's something, somebody, then it does change how we feel. Literally, like the chemicals in our body change how we feel. We are chemical people here.
And we're all connected by energy, right? And so generally the energy you're pushing out is the energy you're going to get back in. Just this week, again, my mom has dementia. Just this week, I went to this market to go get her some tea. We're standing there waiting for the tea. Michael Jackson's Pretty Young Thing comes on. And her and I start dancing as we do. Mm-hmm. And this guy from behind's like, get it? And then not paying attention to me at all, immediately grabs my mom's hand. You check out my Instagram, I put it on there. I pull up the phone and I am like recording this because it was such a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, we really are all connected. Yep. No matter how hard a day we're having, no matter what the thing is, if we can be present in this moment right here, enjoying and gratitude that we're listening to Pretty Young Thing while getting tea, and it connected to this other gentleman who later, as I'm trying to leave because they were going to dance the whole night, gives a hug and he says, my mom passed away a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago, I can't remember, but my mom recently passed away and I needed this moment. Thank you so much. And to your point, Ryan, the feeling was like, I've been rushing to get like to go home because it's raining and it's cold and I want to get back here. And here it was like taking this moment, being in this moment. It not only helped my mom, who loved the attention of being able to dance and this person, the thing, but it helped him as well because he's been kind of in a hole and lacking this thing and whatever. Yeah. And so to your point, it not only, more often than not, when we push out this positive energy, it is helping us. It's 100% helping us, but you have no idea what it's doing for the next person, that you like the impact of it. You probably don't even know how you've impacted her life. And now let me say this, and this is why I love this stuff, is because she now is in a better position. So maybe she's letting the guy in the car go in front of her, right? She's not trying to cut people off. She's not driving aggressively. And oh my God, how easy it is that we just created a kind universe, right?
And this is exactly what we talk about with kind culture.
This is exactly it. It's these one itty bitty moments, these small kind of things that we do day in and day out that have huge impact.
Yep. And to bring it into the workplace and change within the workplace, there are opportunities for this exact thing throughout your entire day, whether you're in a meeting, whether you're in a one-on-one, whether you're just standing there talking with a colleague, right? I mean, these are the kinds of things that you go, okay, that person that's sitting across from me, and they just heard that we're doing this big project, that we're going to implement this change, right? Or they just heard that, maybe our numbers as a company aren't as great as we want them to be this year, right? Those are things that everybody gets real uptight about. They go, oh, how is this going to affect me, right? How is this going to affect my relationship with suffering or death or money or all of those things that everybody worries about every day? And in the moment, if you can take that time to connect with people and be like, hey, you know what? I understand that this is going to be tumultuous. It may be a little bit difficult, but you know what? We're here for each other, and then connect with them in that emotional way to say, you know what? I see you as a human being. That really helps, grease the skids a little bit when it comes to how people approach this stuff. And it makes
a million percent. Yeah. A million percent.
It's the answer.
And it is the answer.
It is the answer. Yep. That's it.
It absolutely
there really is
connection.
Nothing.
Connecting with
there's
people.
There's nothing left.
You.
It is that. It is the very thing we talk about. We do a lot of trainings with folks, and we talk about active listening, and it's like, just be quiet. Don't worry about what your response needs to be. If you just look around a room, you'll be able to see. I can tell Rachel's energy's off today, and she might need a little extra something. I can tell Ryan's excited about something. Let me go over and ask him and see what he's excited about today. I can see that when we just take a moment, and I always did, like, get off your phone, and this is work, this is walking around, this is in your car driving, like, take a second to lift your head up and look around your space. Yeah. This is the answer. The minute you can connect with anybody at work, I know you're having a hard day, Rach. Hey, even just the acknowledgement. Rach, I'm so sorry. I know you're probably having a hard day today. Is there anything I can do for you? Yeah. Or better yet, what can I do for you? Not a binary question, but how can I help you today? Tell me. That just changes the whole dynamic. We talk about, I think it was it 2021 or 2022 that quiet quitting was like the big kind of thing. And companies were so happy when the economy switched, because it was like, ha, you can't quiet quit anymore. The essence of that though was,
I like the voice you use for the company name.
But the essence of that was, people were feeling disconnected from their work, right? They were feeling disconnected. They were feeling undervalued, not appreciated, all of those things. And I always say to companies, listen, you just show just a modicum, just like this little itty bitty tiny bit of like, hey, to the next person, you're going to get more out of that person. Your productivity is going to improve without changing a single process. Your productivity is going to go through the roof, because all of a sudden, oh my God, you care.
You care.
That is, to me, that is the final answer. There's nothing left, and it's the cheapest and most inexpensive thing to do.
including like, Ryan, your practice here about complimenting somebody, or telling them something that you appreciate about them, whatever that looks like. I'm actually trying to do that with my kid, because in the morning we wake up, everybody's grumpy. I'm like, okay, if I go in there grumpy too, then she's going to feed off this, and now it sets the tone for the day. So even if I am like kind of I'm
and
like,
that's the same thing. That's the same thing in meetings. It's the same thing in meetings. You walk into a meeting and you got grumpy face on. Everybody's like, "Uh-oh."
Problem.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
I may have taken the nice thing a little too far actually this week. I'll tell you a funny story. So I walked out of the office, and we work like, maybe 3 blocks from this really nice downtown area where there's like all sorts of restaurants and food, and there's like, there's fast food, but there's also good restaurants. There's a Subway. And so yesterday I was actually walking out to go to Subway, right? And I'm in my mind, I'm like, I'm in this good mood, and I'm walking out, and we're right behind Bart, and there's a group of people, and then like a woman walking by herself to Bart, and I'm a fast walker, and so I happen to be walking by this woman, and she's got this really nice scent that she's wearing. And as I walk by, I'm like, you smell nice. And it was just like one of those things, like I'm just in this mode
Did
of
you also sniff her, Ryan?
no, but I was like,
nice.
as I walked, she's like, well, thank you. And then as I walked by, I was like, oh, I'm the creepy guy who's like,
No.
I'm like,
because
oh,
that wasn't the energy. It wasn't. It would have been creepy if the mindset was creepy, and that was the creepy energy.
Or
but
you were sniffing all over her.
No, I was just oh, hey, but I had this moment of like, oh God, did I just become the old creepy guy?
No, because you know why? Authenticity rules the day.
Yeah.
You thought she smelled good, and you gave her that compliment. It wasn't with the intent of wanting to get anything from her or trying to like be weird about it or anything. Right. And I think that's sometimes what's lost on people, right? Yes. Like they don't understand the authenticity, the intent behind something. And I call it the energy. The energy you were pushing out to her was not that. And that's why she turned and said, thank you, and not get out of here, creeper.
No, the energy was, I want my Subway sandwich.
I bet you don't smell as good as the bread.
No, and I mean, taking it back to the work and stuff, like I find that, well, so maybe I'll take it to work and personal. Like the last 6 weeks have been a real crucible for me in terms of like dealing with some of these things and trying to work through the emotions of all of this stuff, whether it's personal life, work, and how you manage all of these things. Because it's been a real rough 6 or 8 weeks. And I will tell you that I have found, even in my relationship with my wife, that we're having a little bit more open and honest conversations with each other, because not only, am I trying to be better about that, but I think, when you get to that level, when you can make a connection with somebody, when you can say, whether it's through a compliment, whether it's through connecting with them because of whatever it is they're going through, whatever it happens to be, you can get to a different level of relationship and conversation. And it actually, in the long run, if you continue to do that, it actually makes having difficult conversations, it makes when you go through these things, it gives you a better shorthand and a way to connect with people that they know that they trust you, because it's not just about you being selfish in those moments. It's about really taking it out and making it about that other person and what they need. And that, in the long run, I think pays dividends, not just because it helps with the change, but that as you're going through it, you authentically are caring about the other person and what they need when you do go through it. That is actually something that I've seen in the last 6 or 8 weeks with my wife, with my son, even with people at work, right? It's that there's this, it actually is almost like a breath.
It's trust. You're showing up, you're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
You're creating that space, and you're building trust, you're being authentic, you're being vulnerable, sharing yourself. We coach a lot of folks who are like, I hate having difficult conversations, I hate giving feedback, the big F word, the big, all these things. Yep. And it's like, well, go take it where it's not a difficult conversation. We're having conversations. We don't need to like give difficult feedback or anything. If I'm connected with you and I know enough about you and I know your why and I know what motivates you and I know what you're going through and I know this, whatever it is, you have that in your pocket. That's your cash. You got your bank account, whatever the right term is here. But then there's trust, and then I can be vulnerable and I can say, hey, when you showed up with that client on that thing, how'd that go? What do you think you want to do better there? Okay, good. And here's where I think what could help you reach your goals, because now I know who you are and I know what motivates you. And that's not a difficult conversation. That's two people conversing. But to get there, we had to do that groundwork of being vulnerable, putting it out there, not knowing exactly where the chips are going to fall, and let that be okay, because there's enough commitment, in the case of your wife and your son, family, that's different. There's a level of commitment there. But even at work too, there's a level of commitment. I've committed to you as an employer, as an employee, to show up. Yes, it's a contract that's a lot easier to null and void versus a marriage, but it's the same thing. We want to do well. We don't take a job to go, oh, I can't wait for the day I can quit this.
Well, I mean, it depends if you're retired.
Maybe you do.
So, but,
Yeah.
I tend to think of that, Rachel, as relationship capital. If you want to put it in like coaching terms or like organizational change terms or whatever, I think of it as kind of relationship capital. And the way that I visualize it in my head, it's kind of like a bank account, right?
Yeah.
There's all these debits and credits that you're building up over time. And ultimately, like if you're really going after it from the perspective of like, I want to and care about this other person, there are more credits that get built up over time than there are debits, because you're able
Maybe you
to
get a nickel every day because that's your intention, even if it's not an interaction.
Yeah.
Right?
And I can tell you, even from experience of being an operator and sitting down with someone and having to talk about some of their lacking, skills or the things that they need to change and improve, and them saying thank you at the end of it. They're not upset. They're not, because they do know that, well, this is mutual interest. I'm interested in your success as you're interested in your success. I think the challenge comes when we only, and part of it is you're not going to catch, I think, especially from Rachel and I, you're not going to catch this idea of punitive actions towards employees. It's really around, how can we remove barriers? What are the challenges? This isn't fun for you. This is not fun for us. How do we make this fun again? And sometimes that is the conversation of, maybe this isn't the right situation for you. How do we get you into a better one?
But that in itself can be kind, right?
Absolutely.
It actually is an
100%.
act of kindness for that other person, right? Because if
100%.
they're miserable, then let's find a better situation.
I want to help you be unmiserable.
That's right.
Is that another role in the organization, or is that, yes?
Yep.
It's like right now you have, and I don't know why this is a thing. Maybe you guys can tell me. It seems that now organizations, particularly these big organizations that have people maybe internationally, are getting on calls to be like, oh, the organization's not doing well, we're going to do a mass layoff. This one woman was chronicling her stuff on TikTok, and she's like, I think I'm going to get laid off today. You know what the meeting was? Okay, we're not making our numbers. If you get an email in the next 15 minutes, then you're part of the layoff group.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, this cannot be a thing. Especially because I think it was last year that you had one of the big companies where he did a mass layoff via email, like it was like a company call, and everyone was like, how are you treating people this way? You are not getting, what did you call it? What kind of capital?
Human capital.
You
Relationship
are
capital.
not having any relationship capital, and you're not thinking about it today because you don't care, because you got to make some numbers. You don't care about all these people you're letting go. But at some point, you're going to need people again.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to need to hire people again. And guess who's not coming?
That's right. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Everybody
I just
watching
spit everywhere.
TikTok.
I just spit everywhere. The good ones aren't coming.
Yeah.
Because they know exactly what kind of place you are. So I think building the relationship capital happens, and giving people feedback is not the tipping point for folks. And I'll also add, this is not popular, but money isn't either. Money is not the driver. Of course, you've got to compensate people, and that's part of having respect for people, is compensating them. Yeah. But if you think that the compensation outweighs, especially for this younger generation, good luck. Because it doesn't. They want to feel valued. They want to feel like they matter. They want to feel like you're connected to them. They want to feel like you care about them, right? Yeah. So that relationship capital becomes even more important.
I could do a whole podcast on that topic alone, and why I think that hybrid environments and full remote work environments have led to some of these things. I think it actually goes back to what you were saying earlier about the quiet quitting and that kind of stuff. I think that the remote work environment, while workers say that they want to actually have a remote work environment, I think that the remote work environment actually leads to some of these situations where people don't feel valued, because we have not yet figured out the right way of making a remote work environment anything but just transactional.
Yeah, you don't feel seen. I'm not.
Well, not just that, but like every time, like I know I feel it. Like I don't feel like calling somebody out of the blue on Zoom because I feel like I'm interrupting them. Whereas like if I walk by somebody's office or meet them in the kitchen at work, I'm much more likely to have a conversation that builds that relationship capital than it is just me calling somebody out of the blue on Zoom and being like, hey, I just want to talk. The remote work environment
but why is that strange? Like, how do we get to a place where we normalize that? Like,
I don't think that,
let's spend 5
and
minutes.
Maybe it's just me, but I've talked to other people in my organization, and that doesn't feel like a normative behavior. On Zoom.
It's not yet. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's not.
We have not made that a norm to do. Just like
Right.
walking by somebody and going, "You smell nice." You're like, "Oh, that was weird." And like, why is that weird? It doesn't have to be weird. So just like calling somebody up on Zoom, like, "Hey, let's have a chat. What's going on?"
But I do think that lack of a normative behavior also leads to some of these lack of emotional awareness when they do these firings or these layoffs, right? They're like, it's over Zoom and it's fine, you know.
But I will say, I mean, this issue's been around for a while. We've had engagement rates have been dipping annually since the 90s, right? So people are less and less engaged at work. I think remote work has some to do with it, but I also think it is this idea. I mean, a couple years ago I was just working for an organization that still referred to people as human capital. Right? Like, we normalize some of these things where it's like people are a number. Again, the company I work for, every September is a layoff. Every September is a layoff. Everything's about how we're going to make sure shareholders or the street is happy about numbers. And we forget, at some point we're actually going to need human people that we have to engage with again, right? Another really one went viral 2 weeks ago where the HR person without the manager was laying this woman off, and she's filming herself being laid off, and she was like, well, can you tell me what I did wrong? And he's like, well, I can't exactly tell you, I don't exactly know, but it's your performance. She was like, but no one's talked to me about my performance at all. And so I think it comes down to, and we always say this, and so I hate to even use it, but we are such poor communicators at every step of the way, and we hate to celebrate victories. So we do a terrible job at like, oh my gosh, you're doing a great job. Like, these things are working out really well. We love to call the meeting when the thing didn't work out, and what are all the things that went wrong. And we love to like make sure that there is, we have Hollywood movies. There's got to be a villain of the story, right? We make sure there's someone who's standing up and taking the blame. Yeah, who's taking the blame.
But that goes back to the relationship capital, right? Because it doesn't necessarily, we don't always have to be connecting on the kids' soccer or whatever. I mean, I recommend that. I like that. But it doesn't have to be that. It can also be like, hey, you did a really good job on XYZ. So when I do have to talk to you about something or something's not fair, again, we've got that trust. We've got that capital. Right. You know that I'm here for your best interest because I've given you enough to know that you're rocking it.
You know it.
Otherwise,
it's authentically real. It is going and telling. It's a man walking by a woman he doesn't know and giving her a compliment that she smells good. Yeah. And that can happen. There's two outcomes to that, right?
Aren't you glad you told us this story, Ryan? I love it.
No, but Ryan,
it's so
it is
spot
such
on.
A perfect example because. If a person comes up, especially for women, I'm gonna just say this for women, we're always in such a defensive stance, like we're like ready because like it's always gonna be something. But I think Harvard, I think it was Harvard did a study on your like that gut feeling, and that's like a real thing. It's like a innate kind of thing. You have a sense when a person's trying to be real and true and authentic. It's not creepy. It's not weird. They're not trying to do something bad to you. You feel that. You physically feel it. Yeah. So if you approach me and I can tell and you look really pretty today. I don't have my stank face on. Like, I don't care what your opinion is. I'm ready to be like, oh, thank you. And I have my engaged and open face on, not my chicken wing. Like, get out of my face, Yeah. So I think
just so you know, it's not just the women that I'm complimenting. Like, I complimented a guy on his kicks the other day too. Like, I'm doing it for everybody. It's not just
this particular example, and more to the point of because there tends to be a strain between male and female. It's a great example of how being authentic and being real and having real true intent and showing up with the right energy in the right space in the right time, it's always going to work out. Very rarely are people going to are people going to take that wrong? I'm not saying it won't ever happen.
It does, and I'm sure there's like, again, TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Tic-tac?
I keep saying TikTok.
Yeah.
I just feel like making like, okay, so complimenting somebody on their perfume or whatever, their shoes, isn't like authentic connection. But I think that we are so disconnected at times as people, because we are on our device, or we're in our own head about what's going on in the world, or what's happening to us in the moment, or whatever. That I think that we've gotten away from. And to your point about people feeling disengaged in business, right, or in the workplace, I think that we have gotten away from really having like connection with people, whether that's at work or out in the world. And for me, like, I don't know, I have felt over the last 6 or 8 weeks like trying to figure out a way to just put some goodness back out into the world and really let people know that they're seen and heard. I mean, obviously you can't make people feel like they're heard if you're just walking by them and complimenting them, but ultimately, like, giving people the opportunity to feel seen and heard. I don't want to use, I'm going to use it, but it's not the right term, but like such an ego boost for people, and it makes them feel valued. And it's just, I don't know, it's just recognizing people's humanity and the shared experience that we all have. And I don't know, I felt like, especially in the workplace as it relates to change, when we go through that stuff, people can feel very unanchored and alone. And helping them be seen and heard and felt, I think it's just such an important way of getting people back to feeling anchored.
Yeah, we are. It's the weird thing is we are. I'm going to refer to us humans as animals. We
Yeah.
are connection animals. We're communal animals. We do things together, and we over the last maybe I'm going to call it maybe since industrialization and in sort of moving. We've moved away from community, right? How many people can you talk to right now that could not tell you their neighbor's name?
Yeah.
Their neighbor, and they could have lived in a place 10 years. Okay, well, you kind of just moved there, but still, and you live in a community where there's not a lot of people even.
Right.
Like, you see what I'm saying? We're all so very disconnected. It's the main thing that we have to get back to. We were just having this conversation around connectivity and how many of us are different. We're different culturally, and we start to sort of like rank our experiences against each other, and we stop like taking a moment to just listen and taking a moment to kind of understand and be empathetic to the next person, regardless of what our preconceived notions are about them. Yep. So you're 100% correct. I mean, this is the name of the game for Rachel and I that we keep talking about. It's like, hey, we all need to take a deep breath. We're all very, very disconnected, and we've got to find a way to connect those dots back together again.
Yep, 100%.
Well, with that,
yeah,
I think this was great, Ryan. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for your insights and bringing the conversation, bringing your whole authentic, vulnerable self. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys too. I mean, I know, Andie, we've only connected a couple of times, but I love the energy, and I just love the perspective, and I love the kindness coach at the bottom there. And Rachel, I know, we've known each other for forever, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk about this stuff with me, and that you're putting that energy out in the world, because this is a real important dialogue to have, and I think everybody's going to be, because hopefully people are looking at this and adopting some of these practices, and that it spreads humanity.
We need it.
It makes us all better.
Totally. We need it. We cannot continue down this path. It's not sustainable for us. We were talking about this earlier. Loneliness, depression, anxiety, like all these things are skyrocketed because we're literally going against our most innate nature, right? Yep. And that is to be connected, supporting one another. So I have to say, Ryan, thank you. And I think I can speak for Rachel. Just thank you for being connected into this and having these conversations. I think not only people in your position, right, in senior level positions in organizations, we want to be having more of these conversations so we can begin to like, how do we get this stuff to flow?
It's the norm. It's the norm.
The flow, right? It's how we're all behaving and acting, and we know that begins with leadership. So
I will say I'm very fortunate in that this is this is how Ariat starts. I mean, this is from the top down. There's this philosophy of kind of lead from heart, and start with people first. Be curious, And I think that they all kind of tie together. You can't do the first two without being curious about what's happening with the fellow human being sitting across from you. So
That's
I've been
very
very
beautiful.
fortunate in that. The culture at Area drives kind of a lot of this. So anyway,
Awesome.
thank you for having me
Wonderful.
today.
Thank you.
Thank
I needed a
you.
little bit
Thank
of a
you.
pick me up today. I appreciate it.
Yay.